The dust on the contract was thick enough to write in, and Lily Brennan couldn't read a single word beneath it anyway, which made the whole thing feel like staring at her own coffin lid. She had traveled 3 weeks by train and stagecoach from Boston to this sun-bleached town of Randsburg, California, in the spring of 1887, carrying nothing but a carpet bag and the desperate hope that marriage to a stranger would be better than starving in the streets where her father's debts had left her. The man who was supposed to meet her at the stage depot, a mine owner named Gerald Hutchins, had sent his foreman instead, a weasel-faced man with tobacco-stained teeth who thrust the papers at her the moment her boots hit the California dirt and told her to sign before they headed to the preacher. "I need a moment to read through it," Lily said, her throat dry from the journey and from fear. She was 22 years old, had grown up in modest comfort until her father's gambling had destroyed everything, and had learned to sew and keep house, but had never learned to read more than her own name. Her mother had died when she was young, and her father had seen no point in educating a daughter beyond the basics of signing documents. The shame of it burned in her chest every single day. The foreman, who had introduced himself as Pike, spat into the dust. "Mr. Hutchins is a busy man. He is waiting at the church. You sign now, or you can get back on that stage and explain to the driver why you are heading back east with no money for the fare." Lily's fingers trembled as she held the papers. The sun beat down on her dark hair, making her scalp prickle with sweat beneath her bonnet. Around her, Randsburg bustled with activity miners heading toward the diggings, freight wagons creaking past, women in faded dresses hurrying about their business. The town sat in the Mojave Desert, surrounded by stark hills that shimmered in the heat, and everything looked brown and harsh and nothing like the green springs of Boston. "Let me see those papers." The voice came from behind her, deep and quiet, but carrying an edge of authority that made Pike's expression sour immediately. Lily turned and found herself looking up at a tall man in dusty riding clothes, a worn hat shading eyes the color of desert sage. He was perhaps 26 or 27, with sun-darkened skin and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from the same granite as the surrounding hills. A single revolver sat on his hip, and everything about him suggested capability and a kind of watchful intelligence. "This is none of your concern, Cade," Pike snapped. "The lady is here to marry Mr. Hutchins, and she is going to sign the contract like she agreed to do." The stranger, Cade, ignored Pike entirely and looked at Lily with those steady eyes. "You know what that contract says, miss?" Lily felt heat flood her cheeks, but something in his face made her tell the truth instead of lying. "No, I cannot read it, but I agreed to come here as a mail-order bride and I have nowhere else to go, so it hardly matters what it says, does it?" Something flickered in Cade's expression, anger perhaps, but not directed at her. He held out his hand. "May I?" She handed him the papers before Pike could object. The foreman's face turned an ugly red. "Mr. Hutchins will hear about this interference, Lincoln Cade." "You have no right." "I have every right to make sure a woman knows what she is signing," Lincoln said, his voice still quiet but hard as iron. He scanned the document, and Lily watched his jaw tighten with each line he read. Finally, he looked at her, and there was something like controlled fury in his eyes. "This is not a marriage contract. This is an indenture agreement." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. "What?" Lincoln read aloud, his voice steady and clear. "The undersigned agrees to provide household labor, cooking, cleaning, and any other services required by Gerald Hutchins for a period of 5 years, after which time a marriage may be considered if both parties agree. The undersigned will receive room and board but no wages. The undersigned may not leave the premises without written permission from Gerald Hutchins. Any attempt to break this contract will result in legal action and imprisonment for breach of contract and fraud, as transportation costs will be considered a debt to be repaid with interest. Lily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. That cannot be right. His letters said, his letters lied, Lincoln said bluntly. He looked at Pike. You knew what this was. You were bringing her to 5 years of unpaid servitude, and you knew it. Pike shrugged. She agreed to come. She signed correspondence. That makes it legal enough. Legal enough is not legal, Lincoln said. Then, before Pike could react, he tore the contract cleanly in half, then in half again, letting the pieces flutter to the ground. There. Now it is not legal at all. Pike's hand went to his belt, where Lily now saw he carried a pistol. You just destroyed Mr. Hutchins's property, Cade. That is going to cost you. Lincoln did not move, but something in his stance changed, became more alert. That paper was not his property. And if you pull that gun, Pike, you had better be ready to use it, because I promise you I am faster. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other while Lily stood frozen between them, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Then Pike spat again and took a step back. Hutchins is going to bury you for this. He can try. Lincoln waited until Pike had mounted a nearby horse and ridden off before he turned back to Lily. His expression softened slightly. I am sorry you came all this way for nothing. Hutchins has tried this before with women who are desperate enough not to ask questions. You are the third bride he has brought in, and the contracts are always the same. Lily realized she was shaking. What happened to the other women? One of them could read, and she ran off the same day. The other stayed for 6 months before some of the church women helped her get away. She ended up marrying a rancher up north of here, last I heard. He paused. Where are you from? Boston. Lily's voice came out small. I have no money to get back. I used everything I had for the journey here. Lincoln was quiet for a moment, studying her with those intelligent eyes. Then he said, Can you cook? The question was so unexpected that Lily almost laughed. Yes, I can cook and clean and sew and keep a house. I just cannot read. Lots of folks cannot read. That is nothing to be ashamed of. He seemed to come to some decision. My name is Lincoln Cade. I run a cattle ranch about 5 miles outside town. It is not much, but it is honest work and honest land. I have been managing on my own since my mother passed last year, and the house is starting to show it. If you want work, real work, with wages and your own room and no indenture nonsense, I can offer it. $30 a month plus room and board. Lily stared at him. $30 a month was more than many men made. Why would you offer that to a stranger? Because you need help, and I need help, and because what Hutchins tried to do makes me angry enough to want to do something good to balance it out. Lincoln picked up her carpet bag from where she had set it down. I have a buckboard over at the livery. I need to pick up supplies before we head back. You can come with me, look around town, and decide if you want to take the offer. If you would rather try to find another situation, I will not stop you. But the offer stands. Lily looked around Randsburg, at the dusty streets, and the hard-faced miners, and the way Pike had looked at her like she was a piece of livestock he was delivering. Then she looked at Lincoln Cade, who had just torn up a contract that would have trapped her in servitude, and who was offering her a choice instead of an ultimatum. I will come see your ranch, she said. Lincoln nodded and started walking toward the livery stable. Lily followed, her carpet bag in his capable hands, and tried not to think about the fact that she was once again trusting her fate to a stranger. But this stranger had given her back her freedom when he could have just walked away, and that had to count for something. The ride to Lincoln's ranch took them out of Randsburg and into rolling desert hills dotted with Joshua trees and sage. The buckboard rattled over rough roads, and Lincoln drove with easy competence, pointing out landmarks as they went. That is Johannesburg over that way, another mining town. And that peak to the north is Burnt Mountain. The Rand mining district has been booming since they found gold here in '95, which is why Randsburg has grown so fast. Most of the ranches supply beef to the mining camps. How long have you had your ranch? Lily asked, grateful for conversation that distracted her from the strangeness of her situation. My father started it 20 years ago when this area was even more wild than it is now. He died in '84 and it has been just my mother and me since then. She passed last spring. Lincoln's voice was matter-of-fact, but Lily heard the grief underneath. We run about 200 head of cattle, sell to the mining camps and to buyers who ship east. It is hard work, but it is good land for grazing if you know where the water is. You have hired hands. 2. Ramon and his son Diego. They live in a cabin on the north part of the property. Good men, both of them. Ramon has been with us since the beginning. Lincoln glanced at her. You will be safe there, I want you to know that. My mother raised me to respect women and I keep my word. You will have your own room with a lock on the door, and the work will be honest work, nothing more. The fact that he said it directly, without dancing around the subject, made Lily trust him a little more. Thank you for being plain about it, and thank you for what you did in town. Hutchins is a snake. He owns one of the smaller mines and thinks his money gives him the right to treat people like property. Lincoln's hands tightened on the reins. My father taught me that a man's character is not measured by his wealth, but by how he treats those who have less power than he does. Hutchins fails that measure every single day. They crested a rise and Lincoln pointed ahead. There, that is home. The ranch spread out before them in a wide valley between two ridges of hills. A ranch house built of wood and stone sat near a stand of cottonwood trees that marked a creek. There were corrals, a barn, a bunkhouse, and several smaller outbuildings. It was not grand, but it looked solid and well-maintained, and after weeks of traveling and the shock of nearly being trapped in servitude, it looked like salvation. Lincoln pulled the buckboard up to the house and helped Lily down. His hand was calloused and warm, and he released her the moment her feet touched the ground. Come on, I will show you inside. The house was indeed showing signs of neglect: dust on the floors, dishes piled in the kitchen, cobwebs in the corners, but the bones of it were good. Lincoln showed her through the main room with its stone fireplace, the kitchen with its cast iron stove, and a bedroom off to the side that had clearly been his mother's. This would be yours, he said. I sleep in the loft upstairs. There is a lock on the door, see? Lily looked at the room with its simple bed, dresser, and washstand. A faded quilt covered the bed and curtains hung at the window. It was more than she had dared hope for. It is lovely. Lincoln looked relieved. Good. I will bring in your bag and then I will leave you to settle in. I have stock to check on before dark. There is food in the pantry if you are hungry: bread and cheese and some jerky. Help yourself to anything you need. He left her alone, and Lily sat down on the edge of the bed and finally let herself feel the full weight of what had almost happened. If Lincoln had not been there, if he had not intervened, she would be trapped right now in Hutchins's house, unable to leave, unable to fight back because she could not even read the document that bound her. The thought made her stomach turn, but Lincoln had intervened. He had read the contract aloud, torn it up, and offered her an alternative. He had given her a choice. Lily stood and began to unpack her few belongings, and for the first time since her father's death, she let herself feel something like hope. Over the next days, Lily threw herself into making the house habitable again. She scrubbed floors, washed windows, beat dust from curtains, and reorganized the kitchen until it shone. Lincoln worked from dawn until after dark, riding out to check cattle, mending fences, and handling the endless tasks that came with running a ranch. He came in for meals. Lily cooked breakfast and dinner for him, and packed lunch for him to take, and was unfailingly polite, thanking her for the food and asking if she needed anything from town. Ramon and his son Diego came by the house on her third day there. Ramon was in his 50s, weathered and quiet, with kind eyes. Diego was 19, friendly and talkative. Both of them greeted her with respect and seemed genuinely pleased that someone was looking after Lincoln and the house again. "Miss Lily, it is good to have you here," Ramon said in accented English. "Lincoln, he works too hard since his mama died. He forgets to eat, forgets to sleep. Now maybe he will take care of himself. Yes, I will do my best," Lily said, smiling despite her nervousness. Diego grinned. "Your cooking is already famous, miss. Lincoln says you make better bread than his mother, though he would never say so where she could hear." "Diego, do not embarrass the lady," Ramon said, cuffing his son lightly, but he was smiling. Lily found herself settling into a rhythm. She rose early, made breakfast, cleaned and organized, prepared dinner, and spent the evenings mending Lincoln's clothes or reading. No, not reading. Looking at the newspapers Lincoln brought from town, tracing the letters she did not understand, wishing desperately that she could make sense of them. On her 8th day at the ranch, Lincoln came in from the evening chores and found her at the kitchen table with a newspaper spread out in front of her, her finger tracing the headlines slowly, her lips moving silently as she tried to sound out words she did not know. "Would you like me to teach you?" he asked quietly. Lily jumped, heat flooding her face. She started to fold up the paper. "I am sorry. I should not have been wasting time. You were not wasting time." Lincoln hung his hat on the peg by the door and came to sit across from her. "Reading is not a waste of time. It is a skill, same as riding or roping, and it is a skill you can learn if you want to." Lily looked down at her hands. "I am 22 years old. It is too late." "My mother learned to read when she was 35, Lincoln said. "A school teacher in town taught her over the course of a year. She always said it was one of the best things she ever did. It is never too late." Lily looked up at him, searching his face for mockery or pity, but found only sincerity. "You would teach me, if you want to learn, yes. We could start after dinner each night, an hour or so. It will take time, but you will get there." He smiled, and it transformed his usually serious face. "Besides, it will give me something to do other than fall asleep in my chair after eating too much of your excellent cooking." So they began. Every evening after the dishes were cleared, Lincoln brought out his mother's old primer and taught Lily her letters. He was patient and encouraging, never making her feel foolish when she struggled, always praising her progress. Lily discovered that she loved learning, loved the way letters became words and words became sentences. It was like being given a key to a locked door. They talked while they studied. Lincoln told her about growing up on the ranch, about his father's determination to build something lasting, about his mother's strength and kindness. Lily told him about Boston, about her father's slow descent into debt and drink, about the shame and fear of being left with nothing. "My father was not always like that," she said one night practicing her letters. "When my mother was alive, he was different, but after she died, it was like he gave up. He gambled because he did not care anymore whether he won or lost." "That must have been hard," Lincoln said. "Watching someone you love destroy themselves." "It was, and I was angry at him for a long time. I am still angry, I suppose, but I also miss him. Is that strange?" "No, people are complicated. You can be angry at someone and still love them, still miss them." Lincoln was quiet for a moment. "I was angry at my mother when she died. Angry that she left me alone, even though I knew it was not her choice. Grief makes us feel strange things." Lily looked at him across the table, at this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and respect, who was teaching her to read without asking for anything in return, and felt something shift in her chest. It was not gratitude exactly, though she was grateful. It was something warmer and more dangerous. Spring turned to summer, and the desert heat became intense. Lily learned to manage the household in the worst of it, working in the early mornings and late evenings, resting during the blazing afternoons. Lincoln and the ranch hands worked brutal hours, moving cattle to better grazing, maintaining water sources, dealing with the endless challenges of ranching in the Mojave. One evening in late June, Lincoln came in from the range with blood on his shirt and a gash on his arm. Lily gasped and immediately went to him. "What happened?" "Cattle got spooked by a rattlesnake. I got thrown into some rocks. It is not as bad as it looks." But he swayed slightly as he said it, and Lily grabbed his good arm to steady him. "Sit down before you fall down," she ordered, pulling out a chair. She fetched water and clean cloths and examined the wound. It was deep but clean. "This needs stitches." "I can ride to town. You will do no such thing. You will sit still while I stitch it." Lily went to get needle and thread, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her. She had sewn up her father's wounds more than once during his drinking days. She knew how to do this. Lincoln watched her as she worked, his jaw tight against the pain but his eyes never leaving her face. "You are good at this." "I have practice I wish I did not have." Lily tied off the last stitch and bandaged his arm carefully. "There, keep it clean and dry. If it shows any sign of infection, you will go to the doctor in town. I do not care how busy you are." "Yes, madam," Lincoln said, and there was something in his voice that made her look up. His eyes were warm, grateful, and something more, something that made her breath catch. "You scared me," she said softly, "when I saw the blood." "I am sorry." His good hand came up to cover hers where it still rested on his bandaged arm. "I am all right, Lily. I promise." The touch of his hand sent heat through her entire body. She should pull away, should maintain the professional distance of employer and employee, but she did not want to. She wanted to stay exactly where she was, feeling the warmth of his calloused palm against her skin. "Lily," Lincoln said, his voice rough, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "You do not work for me anymore. I mean you do, but that is not—" He stopped, took a breath. "What I mean is, somewhere over the past months you stopped being just the housekeeper and I stopped being just your employer. You became my friend. You became important to me, and another breath. I care about you, more than I should probably, more than is wise considering the circumstances. But I needed you to know." Lily's heart was hammering. "Lincoln, you do not have to say anything," he said quickly. "I am not asking for anything. You are still safe here and your job is still yours and nothing has to change if you do not want it to. I just needed to be honest." "You care about me," Lily repeated, testing the words. "Yes." "As more than a friend?" "Yes." Lincoln's eyes were steady on hers, honest and open and a little bit scared. Lily felt a smile spread across her face. "Good, because I care about you too. I have for weeks now, and I have been trying not to because I thought it would be inappropriate, or you would think I was presuming too much," or she laughed a little breathlessly. "I care about you, Lincoln, very much." The joy that lit his face was like sunrise. "Really, really." He stood, pulling her gently to her feet, his injured arm forgotten. "Can I kiss you, please?" Lily whispered. Lincoln kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious. His good hand cupped her cheek, and Lily melted into him, into the warmth and strength and rightness of it. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard, and Lincoln was smiling in a way she had never seen before. "I have wanted to do that for so long," he said. "Then do it again." He did, and this kiss was deeper, more certain. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, careful of his injury, and let herself feel all the want and hope and affection that had been building for months. When they finally broke apart again, she was grinning like a fool, and so was he. "We should probably talk about this," Lincoln said, his forehead resting against hers. "We probably should," Lily agreed. "But right now I am too happy to think straight." "Me too." He kissed her once more gently, then stepped back with obvious reluctance. "I should clean up." "And you should, well, whatever you need to do," Lily laughed. "I need to remember how to breathe. Go, clean up. We will talk over dinner." They did talk long into the evening. Lincoln told her that he had been falling for her almost since the beginning, that her courage and kindness and quick humor had captured him completely. Lily told him that he had given her back her life and her hope, and that she had come to love everything about him: his steadiness, his integrity, his quiet strength. "I want to court you properly," Lincoln said. "I want to do this right. Take you to town dances, come calling, the whole thing. Even though you are already living in my house, which makes it a bit unconventional." "Everything about our situation is unconventional," Lily pointed out. "But I would love to be courted by you, Lincoln Cade." They took things slowly, mindful of propriety and their own feelings. Lincoln did court her properly, taking her to town events, introducing her to his friends and neighbors, treating her with respect and affection. The people of Randsburg quickly accepted her, and Lily made friends among the other ranch wives and townswomen. Gerald Hutchins glared at her whenever they crossed paths in town, but he did not approach her. Lincoln had made it clear what would happen if he tried. The torn contract was common knowledge now, and Hutchins's reputation had suffered for it. 2 other mine owners had let him know that his behavior was unacceptable, and the sheriff had warned him that attempting to force indenture contracts on unsuspecting women was illegal, even in the rough and tumble territory of the Mojave. Summer faded into fall, and Lily's reading improved steadily until she could make her way through the newspaper and even some of the books in Lincoln's small collection. She read to him in the evening sometimes, both of them sitting on the porch and watching the sun set over the desert hills. On a cool evening in October, Lincoln took her hand as they sat watching the stars emerge. "Lily, I have something to ask you." She turned to him, her heart already starting to race. "What is it?" "I love you. I think I have loved you since the day I saw you standing in the dust with that contract in your hands, trying to be brave when you were terrified. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. I love the way you have made this house a home again. I love everything about you." He slid off his chair and knelt beside her, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Will you marry me? Not because you need security or a place to live, but because you want to, because you love me too. Will you be my wife?" Lily was crying and smiling at the same time. "Yes, yes, Lincoln, I will marry you. I love you so much." The ring was simple silver with a small stone, and it fit perfectly. Lincoln stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply while the desert night settled around them. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for tearing up that contract," Lily said, laughing through her tears. "Thank you for giving me a choice. Thank you for teaching me to raid. Thank you for being exactly who you are." They were married 3 weeks later in the church in Randsburg, with Ramon and Diego and half the town in attendance. Lily wore a dress she had made herself from fabric Lincoln had bought her, cream-colored with lace at the collar. Lincoln wore his best suit and looked so handsome that Lily's breath caught when she saw him waiting at the altar. The preacher smiled at them as he led them through the vows. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Lincoln kissed her sweetly, and the congregation applauded. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and food and music and dancing that lasted until late into the night. When the last guest had finally left, Lincoln carried Lily over the threshold of the house, both of them laughing. "Welcome home, Mrs. Cade," he said. "I have been home for months," Lily said, kissing him. "But now it is official." Their wedding night was tender and passionate, full of whispered words and gentle touches, and the joy of finally being able to express everything they felt. Lincoln was careful and patient, and Lily felt cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Afterward, they lay tangled together, talking softly until they drifted into sleep. The first years of their marriage were hard work but deeply happy. Lily managed the household and started a vegetable garden that flourished despite the harsh climate. She learned to ride so she could accompany Lincoln sometimes on his rounds of the ranch. He continued teaching her, and she progressed to reading more complex books, even helping him with ranch accounts and correspondence. They faced challenges, of course. A drought in the summer of 1888 nearly broke them, forcing them to sell off part of the herd and take out a loan. But they weathered it together, finding strength in each other. The rains came again the following winter, and slowly they rebuilt. In the spring of 1889, Lily realized she was pregnant. She told Lincoln over breakfast, watching his face as he processed the news. For a moment he just stared at her, and then joy broke across his features like a wave. "Really? A baby, really?" Lily confirmed, laughing as he swept her into his arms and spun her around. "Careful, you will make me dizzy." "I am going to be a father," Lincoln said wonderingly. He set her down carefully as if she were made of glass. "Are you feeling all right? Do you need anything? Should you be resting?" "I am fine. Pregnant women are not invalids, Lincoln." But she was touched by his concern. "Although I will probably need to rest more as I get further along." Lincoln was attentive to the point of being overprotective throughout her pregnancy. Lily bore it with good humor, knowing it came from love and a little bit of fear. She was not afraid, though. She felt strong and ready for this next step in their lives. Their son was born on a cold December night, delivered by the midwife from town, with Lincoln pacing anxiously outside until the baby's first cry. When Lily called him in, he came cautiously, as if he could not quite believe what was happening. Lily held their son out to him. "Meet your father, little one." Lincoln took the baby with trembling hands, staring down at the small red face with absolute wonder. "He is perfect. Lily, he is perfect." "What should we name him?" Lily asked. They had discussed names for months without settling on one. But now, looking at his son, Lincoln said, "William, after my father. William Thomas Cade." "William," Lily repeated. "Billy, it is perfect." Billy was a healthy, happy baby who grew into an energetic toddler. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's dark hair, and he was the light of both their lives. Lincoln was a devoted father, patient and loving, teaching Billy to ride almost before he could walk and reading to him every night. In 1891, Lily gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Grace Ellen. She had Lincoln's coloring and Lily's delicate features, and she was as sweet-tempered as Billy was rambunctious. The house was full of noise and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family life. The ranch prospered. Lincoln expanded the herd, bought additional land, and hired more help. He and Lily worked as partners in everything, discussing decisions and supporting each other through setbacks, and celebrating successes together. Lily's reading had become fluent, and she devoured books from the small library in Randsburg, always hungry for more knowledge. In the summer of 1893, Gerald Hutchins died in a mine collapse. Lincoln brought the news home from town, his face somber. "I know he tried to hurt you, but I am not glad he is dead. Death in the mines is an awful thing." "I am not glad either," Lily said quietly. "I hope he found some peace at the end, but I am grateful I did not end up working for him." If you had not been there that day, Lincoln, my whole life would have been so different. Lincoln pulled her close. I was there, though, and I would make the same choice 1,000 times over because it brought me you. Billy, now 4 years old, tugged at his father's pant leg. Papa, can we go see the new calf? Of course, son. Come on, let us go see the calf. Lincoln hoisted Billy onto his shoulders and headed for the door, pausing to kiss Lily on the way. I will be back for supper. Lily watched them go, then turned to where Grace was playing on a blanket on the floor. She picked up her daughter and held her close, breathing in the baby scent of her, feeling the solid warmth of her. This life, this family, this love, it had all started with a torn contract and a cowboy who believed in doing what was right. Years passed, full and rich. Billy grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch and loved learning. Grace became a little chatterbox who could charm anyone with her smile. In 1895, Lily gave birth to twin boys, Samuel and James, who kept everyone on their toes with their constant energy and mischief. The ranch continued to grow, becoming one of the most successful operations in the area. Lincoln took on a partner, a young rancher named Ben who had worked for them for several years and had proven his worth. This allowed Lincoln to spend more time with his family, which he treasured. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Lincoln took Lily back to the spot where he had proposed. The desert night was clear and cool, the stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. 10 years, he said, pulling her close. The best 10 years of my life. Mine too, Lily said, leaning into him. I was so scared that day in Randsburg. Everything seemed hopeless. And then you stepped in and changed everything. You changed everything, Lincoln corrected. You brought life and love back into this place. You made it a home. You gave me a family. Everything good in my life comes from you, Lily. She turned in his arms to face him. We gave each other everything good. We built this together, Lincoln. The ranch, the family, the life. All of it together. He kissed her, deep and sweet, and Lily felt the same rush of love and desire that she had felt the first time he kissed her, all those years ago. Some things never faded, never diminished. This love was one of them. They walked back to the house hand in hand, talking about their children and their plans and their dreams for the future. The house was warm and bright when they entered, full of the sounds of their children and the smell of the dinner Ramon's wife Maria had prepared as a gift so they could have the evening to themselves. Billy, now 14, was reading to his younger siblings in the main room. He looked up as they entered. "How was your ride?" "Perfect," Lily said, ruffling his hair as she passed. "How are the monsters? We are not monsters." The twins chorused, making everyone laugh. Grace, now 8, came to hug Lily around the waist. "Mama, can we have cake now?" "Maria made a special cake for your anniversary." "In a moment, sweetheart. Let us all sit down together." They gathered around the big table, the whole family, and Maria served the cake she had made, a beautiful creation with cream frosting that made the children's eyes go wide. Lincoln raised his glass of cider. "To my beautiful wife, who said yes to taking a chance on me 10 years ago, thank you for every single day since then." "To my brave, kind, wonderful husband," Lily responded. "Thank you for reading that contract aloud. Thank you for tearing it up. Thank you for giving me a choice, and a life, and a love I never dreamed possible." They clinked glasses, and the children cheered, and the evening dissolved into the warm, happy chaos that was their life. Later, after the children were in bed, Lily and Lincoln sat on the porch in the cool night air, wrapped in a blanket together. "You ever think about what would have happened if I had signed that contract?" Lily asked. "Sometimes," Lincoln admitted, "and it makes me furious all over again. But then I remember that I stopped it. We stopped it, and everything turned out exactly as it should have. You think we would have found each other anyway, If things had been different, Lincoln considered. I like to think so. I like to think that somehow we were meant to find each other. But I am grateful we did not have to wait or search. I am grateful for every single day we have had together. Me too. Lily snuggled closer. I love you, Lincoln Cade. I love you too, Lily Cade. Forever. The years continued to roll by, bringing changes and challenges and joys. Billy grew into a fine young man who took over more and more responsibility on the ranch. Grace became a teacher, traveling to Randsburg each day to teach at the schoolhouse. The twins, wild as colts, were already showing signs of their father's skill with horses and cattle. In 1899, Lily surprised everyone, including herself, by giving birth to their sixth child, a daughter they named Rose. At 34, Lily had thought her childbearing days were over, but Rose arrived healthy and strong, with a full head of red gold hair that came from some distant ancestor on Lincoln's side. She is going to be a handful with that red hair, Lincoln said, cradling his new daughter with the ease of long practice. All our children are handfuls, Lily pointed out, laughing, and we love them for it. As the new century dawned, the Cade family was firmly established as one of the pillars of the community. Lincoln served on the town council, Lily organized charity efforts for those in need, and their children were growing into capable, caring people. On a warm spring evening in 1901, the whole family gathered for Sunday dinner, which had become a tradition. Billy was 20 now, already courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher. Grace was 16, beautiful and bright and passionate about teaching. The twins were 12, full of energy and mischief. And Rose, at 2 years old, toddled around charming everyone with her lisp and her laughter. After dinner, as the sun set in brilliant orange and pink, Lincoln found Lily in the garden she had spent years cultivating. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Happy, blissfully, Lily said, leaning back against him. You, more than I can say. He turned her to face him. You know, in a few months it will be 14 years since I first saw you standing in the street in Randsburg, holding that contract. 14 years, Lily marveled. It feels like yesterday and like a lifetime ago at the same time. I knew the moment I read that contract that I could not let it stand, but I had no idea that tearing it up would be the best decision I ever made, that it would lead to all this. He gestured at the house, the family visible through the windows, the land stretching around them, to everything. Lily reached up to cup his face in her hands. You saved me that day, Lincoln, and then you loved me, and then you built a life with me. I was so lost when I came here, and you helped me find my way. You taught me to read, to trust, to hope again. You gave me everything. We gave each other everything, Lincoln said, echoing her words from years before. That is what marriage is supposed to be, partnership, choosing each other every single day. I choose you, Lily whispered, today and every day. I choose you too, my love. They stood in the garden as the stars began to emerge, holding each other, surrounded by the life they had built together. A life that had started with a torn contract and a choice freely made. A life full of love and challenge and joy. A life they had created together, word by word, day by day, choice by choice. Inside the house, their children's laughter rang out. On the range, cattle lowed peacefully. In the bunkhouse, the ranch hands settled in for the night. And in the garden, Lincoln and Lily Cade held each other and counted their blessings, grateful for every twist of fate that had brought them to this moment. The mail-order bride who could not read had learned not just words but her own worth. The cowboy who had read the contract aloud and torn it up had gained a partner, a love, and a family beyond his wildest dreams. Together, they had built something lasting and true, something that would endure long after they were gone, a legacy of love and integrity and choosing what was right, even when it was hard. As they finally walked back toward the house, hand in hand, Lily looked up at the stars and sent a silent thank you to whatever force had brought her to Randsburg on that dusty day in 1887. And Lincoln, seeing the peace on her face, pulled her close and kissed her temple, knowing that he was the luckiest man alive. The years ahead would bring more changes. Billy would marry and take over the ranch, giving Lincoln and Lily more grandchildren to spoil. Grace would marry a lawyer from Los Angeles and move to the city, though she came home often. The twins would start their own ranching operation on land Lincoln helped them buy. And Rose, the surprise baby, would become a doctor, one of the first women doctors in California, making her parents burst with pride. But all of that was still to come. For now, on this perfect spring evening, Lincoln and Lily simply walked into their home, greeted their children with hugs and kisses, and settled in for another evening of the beautiful, ordinary life they had built together. A life that began with a cowboy reading a contract aloud and tearing it up, giving a desperate woman her freedom and, eventually, his heart. A life that proved that sometimes the best things come from the worst moments, and that true love is always worth fighting for, worth choosing, worth building day by patient day. As Lily tucked Rose into bed that night, the little girl looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Mama, tell me the story about how you and Papa met." Lily smiled and brushed red gold curls back from her daughter's forehead. Once upon a time, a young woman came to a town called Randsburg. She was scared and alone and did not know what was going to happen to her. But then a brave cowboy saw that she needed help and he helped her, and that changed both of their lives forever. Because he loved her, Rose asked. Because he chose to do what was right. And then later, yes, because they loved each other very, very much. Like you and Papa love each other. Exactly like that, sweetheart. Rose's eyes drifted closed. I want to find love like that someday. You will, Lily promised, kissing her daughter's forehead. When you are grown up and ready, you will find someone who chooses you and loves you just as you are, just like your papa chose me. She left the room quietly, closing the door behind her. Lincoln was waiting in the hallway, and they walked to their own room together, ready for another night of peace in the home they had built, the life they had created, the love they had nurtured for 14 years and would nurture for all the years to come. In the darkness, wrapped in each other's arms, Lincoln whispered, "Thank you for coming to Randsburg." "Thank you for being there when I did," Lily whispered back. And with those simple words of gratitude and love, they drifted into sleep, secure in the knowledge that they had found in each other exactly what they needed: a partner, a friend, a lover, a home. The mail-order bride who could not read had learned not just to read, but to write her own story, one with a happy ending and a love that would last forever. The cowboy who had torn up a contract had gained something far more valuable than any written agreement: a marriage built on choice, trust, and devotion that would endure through all the years of their lives. And in the morning, they would wake and begin again, choosing each other once more, building their life one day at a time, one moment at a time, one loving choice at a time. Because that, they had learned, was what true love really was: not a contract or an obligation, but a daily choice to stand together, to support each other, to build something beautiful in the harsh and beautiful landscape of the American West. The end of their story was really just the continuation of it, stretching forward into a future bright with promise and rich with love. And if anyone had asked them whether they believed in fate or destiny, they would have said that maybe those things existed, but what really mattered was the choice they had made to love each other, to stay together, to build a life worth living. That choice, made over and over again for 14 years and counting, was what had created their happiness. That choice was what would sustain them through whatever came next. As the desert night settled over the ranch, peaceful and star-filled, Lincoln and Lily slept in each other's arms, their children safe in their beds, their land secure around them, their future full of hope. They had built this together, a word at a time, a day at a time, a choice at a time. And it was more than enough. It was everything. It was home.